How many people here can remember being asked at some point in their lives to give an oral presentation to a group of people? Now, I would expect almost every one of you to raise your hands, and more often than not, this memory can be remembered as the dreadful experience from a high school English class. Hi, my name is Cody Pike, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the most common basic presentations used today, a how-to format. Now, for example, one of my very first presentations that I can remember having to give to a class as a freshman in high school was this very time. And in fact, my personal topic of choice was how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Sounds simple, right? At that stage in life, it was probably a little simpler compared to what it is like to describe how to do some of the things that are used in today's professional world. That is what we're here to discuss with you today. More than likely, as professionals in any trade, there may come a time when you are asked to instruct people how to do something. There are many ways that this can be done. There are many different methods that can be used to teach a person how to do a task. These include handouts, including instructions, online help databases, user manuals, and verbal orders. However, these are not always able to fully educate the users to achieve the work necessary to be completed. This is where a how-to presentation comes in handy. This method allows the presenter, who is essentially an educator in this format, to be able to visually and emotionally connect with his or her audience while instructing them. This allows for a much greater chance of success. Actually standing in front of the audience and displaying while visually showing what is required to be done has a much higher success rate than any other method. This way allows the audience being instructed to give and obtain feedback, and therefore bypassing all the flaws of written and online help, which is unable to cater to each individual's need. But just what exactly is a how-to presentation? Well, in some cases, it can be just as simple as the sandwich example from earlier, but this will vary depending upon your personal need. Essentially, these presentations are used to help individuals learn to complete a task. This can be accomplished using any of several different types of presentations. However, even though these differ in many ways, they all share common features. Each one lays out a list of set directions or actions for the user to follow. Next, it will give more detailed ways to complete each of these set tasks. It will then continue on until the assigned task is completed or the user has been adequately instructed to use or operate whatever the individual case may be. How-to presentations are oftentimes considered to be one of the most difficult topics an individual can discuss. But we hope that our presentation to you today will help educate and inspire you to learn more about this type of presentation and to also incorporate it into your lives. Our next speaker will be David, who will be elaborating more on the specifics of the different types of presentations that are available to be used.
Hello, my name is David Seaton. I'm going to go over the different types of how-to presentations and technical communications with you today. How-to presentations are very commonly used in today's world, especially with technology becoming more and more complex. For certain hobbies in the workplace, you will probably at some point have to listen to a how-to presentation. First, we will cover training presentations, followed by product demonstrations, and then finally, procedural demonstrations. Training presentations are driven by technical communication. These presentations are very informative and target a specific audience. One of the most widely used training presentations is for computer-based programs such as running software programs. Complex programs can be difficult to learn on your own, and these presentations can really help the audience learn how to use these devices. Some other types of presentations are used for more hands-on training, such as in a factory setting. Machinery in the workplace can be difficult to understand and use. These problems can be resolved with a how-to presentation. Product demonstrations are very useful in marketing to show products, features that make it unique and special. In these demonstrations, the presenter will have a sample product to demonstrate upon. Some products can be very complex and difficult to use and may require a certain amount of planning and preparation. Preparation is a big part of the product demonstrations because of the product itself is needed to demonstrate on. It itself is very helpful if you present with the actual product itself, but sometimes the product may be too big to bring. So in order to do so, a scaled-down version may be preferred. Procedural demonstrations are more of a generalized topic, not narrowing in on step-by-step processes. These examples are often done with simulations and not the actual product itself. One example is a doctor's conference that would have a computer-based simulation for a new type of surgery instead of having a live example of the surgery during the demonstration. Another example might be a firefighter's demonstration showing the procedure for putting out a fire in a burning building. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about the different types of how-to presentations and technical communication. Here's Reggie to talk to you about tips for creating effective how-to presentations.
When creating and performing a how-to presentation, it is important to follow a few useful tips in order to ensure your presentation is as successful as possible. First, make sure to begin your presentation with a strong introduction. To do this, you want to capture the audience's attention. This could be done by using a famous quote or telling a story. During the introduction, it is important to give the audience an overview of what will be covered during the presentation. This is useful because the audience will know what to expect throughout the presentation. Next, we as presenters must analyze the task our audience will need to perform. If your presentation involves something that requires prior knowledge or skill on how to perform, it is important to effectively evaluate your audience. Your audience may be people that have knowledge or experience on how to do the task you're presenting, or it could be a brand new concept to your audience. By finding more about our audience, we can analyze the task our audience will perform. We can find out more about our audience by interviewing some of the audience, by doing some audience analysis. An audience analysis can be done by interviewing the member of the audience and finding what their knowledge is on and what you present by asking them to perform the task and taking notes on what you observe. To create an effective how-to presentation, we must also follow some sort of organizational pattern. Most how-to presentations are most effective if organized in a reasonable pattern with chronological structure. We must also tailor our presentations to specific needs of the audience. We must make sure that our information is first relevant to the audience. For example, we do not need to give a presentation on introductory level material to an audience of professionals that work or study daily on the material being presented. This can be avoided by doing an audience and task analysis as discussed previously. We can tailor our presentation to the audience by evaluating the level of instruction. This can be determined by 3 questions. First, is the purpose of your presentation to teach every detail about how to perform the task, or is it to overview basic steps and let the audience practice on their own time? Lastly, we need to look at how much time we will have to present our information. The more time we have, the more in-depth our presentation can be. After we know the level of instruction our audience needs, we can now determine the level of steps we will include. If our audience knows absolutely nothing about the topic we're presenting, it is imperative that we include many steps so they are able to effectively complete the task we are presenting in our how-to presentation. On the other hand, if our audience already has some knowledge, little steps can be left out and just main points are necessary to include. When determining the right level of steps, it is important to not overload the audience with too many steps. To avoid having too many steps, we must have a clear sense of purpose. One thing important to remember is even if you have an infinite amount of time to do a presentation, the audience is only capable of retaining a limited amount of information before they become overwhelmed. If providing the audience with many steps is unavoidable, providing written support for the audience may prove to be necessary. These can be in the form of flip charts or even handouts. When providing the audience with steps, it is important to have the steps organized in a way that is easy for the audience to follow. One easy and simple way to do this is by giving the audience a numbered list. Shown in the image here, we have a typical image of how to tie a bow tie. This image provides the viewer with a numbered list that is easy to follow step by step. Some other types of organizational patterns include a description, checklist, action-response discussion, and a question list. As said previously, handouts may prove to be necessary in not only helping your audience follow along, but also helping your audience perform the task after leaving your presentation. These handouts can follow organizational patterns previously described and also need to be consistent with organizational patterns used in the presentation. For example, if your presentation is organized using a numbered list, your handout needs to be a numbered list. Like all presentations, practice is key. Practicing your presentation is especially important in a how-to presentation because you are teaching others how to do something. This makes it especially important to have a good understanding of what you're explaining because an audience is going to have a hard time learning how to do something you, the presenter, doesn't even understand well. Many how-to presentations also involve prompts, so it's important that you provide yourself enough time to set up and ensure that the prompts work. It may be helpful to have an assistant to help you with this. When demonstrating something, also remember less is more. The less setup time you have during the presentation, the better, because you have more time to explain information. Lastly, you want to allow time for feedback. At the end of the presentation, it may be useful to ask for questions or even include contact information. This is good because if someone doesn't understand a certain step or aspect, they can receive information on the topic.
Hello, I'm Bradley Bruce, and I'm here to talk to you about the creation of a how-to presentation and the basics you need to know about them. The most important thing to consider when creating a how-to presentation is the topic. A person should choose a topic which usually includes a specific task that relates to their field of study. A topic should make sense and should not be confusing. The information of the presentation should match the level of education that your audience has. Therefore, if you are speaking at a national conference, then you should be formal. You should be able to present your information in a well-educated manner. On the other hand, if you're presenting to a bunch of fourth graders, then your information should be less formal and simple. A few how-to presentation examples shown behind me here on the PowerPoint could be how to fertilize a garden, how to eradicate fescue from a field and plant it in native warm season grasses, how to tie a tie, or how to play guitar. These examples are a prime example of how you should conduct a how-to presentation towards different audiences with different educated backgrounds, because some of them are quite simple and some of them are very complex. The 5 key ideas of a how-to presentation are the audience, the purpose, the research, the time, and the visuals of your presentation. The audience is important because they are the reason behind the how-to presentation. In a formal presentation, it is important that the audience are somewhat familiar with the subject of the information that you're presenting. The audience is there to learn how to do something. The purpose of your presentation is important because the information should mean something to someone. While giving a how-to presentation, the purpose should be to teach the audience on how to do something. The presenter should research their topic. Without research, a presenter could not efficiently reach across to their audience. The presenter should know everything that there is to know about the topic. A how-to presentation should last a fair amount of time. These type of presentations should last roughly 10 to 12 minutes. A presenter should also include visual aid. Remember that the text in your PowerPoint should be large enough font size so even that the audience in the back of the room can still see. It is very difficult to teach the audience on how to do something without a visual image. Visual images could be pictures in your PowerPoint or props. When explaining how to perform a task, it is often better to have a face-to-face confrontation with the audience when explaining a complex task. A printed detailed instruction should also be given to the audience for the task at hand. There are 3 types of how-to presentations. The 3 types are training presentations, product demonstrations, and procedural demonstrations. It is important to remember that you should always keep your focus on the audience. A presenter should catch the audience's attention and keep the audience's focus on the presenter. No audience likes a boring presenter. As I stated earlier, the presenter should keep the task at an appropriate level for the audience. The presenter should make the audience can follow the task and should not overload them with too many complicated steps. You can direct all our questions that you have for us to the number up here on the PowerPoint. These are our sources, and we just want to say from all of us that presented today, we want to say thank you for your time.